Good evening, Miss NATS chatters. Oh, good, Alan's back. Thank you for joining us tonight. And we're going to just give it 20 seconds for people to, for our attendees to load on, and then I will do a proper welcome for the season. Just give us another 20 seconds of patience. Thank you.
Kari, is this all audio, no video?
Nope, they can see us.
Okay.
Yes, yep, they can see us and hear us. Okay, well, I am going to then for his continued support and contribution to our NATS chats. We also have a new marketing and communications manager, Paul Witkowski, who has already been a tremendous help to us. So welcome, Paul, from all of the NATS members. And tonight we have the privilege of welcoming Dr. Don Greene, who is a performance psychologist. And Dr. Greene has been working with performers since about 1994. He has worked with singers from Miami Opera, Boston, Juilliard, Manhattan, Chicago, LA Young Artists, to name just a few. And he has also written two incredible books, The Performance Success and Audition Success, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight. So before I do a proper introduction, Dr. Greene, let me just take a minute for our NATS chatters to tell you I really would love participation from you tonight, and you have two ways to ask questions. There's a little box that says questions, and you can type a question to me, and then I'll ask it on your behalf. Or there's a little virtual hand that looks like this, and you can click on that, and that tells me that you would like me to open your mic at an appropriate time, and then you can ask your question yourself. So there are two ways for you to participate, and I hope you will do so. So tonight, Dr. Greene, thank you so much for being here with us.
My pleasure, Kari. Thank you.
One of the elements I found most interesting, ironically, is your military background. And first of all, thank you for the service to our country. I was fascinated that you're West Point Academy trained, and I sounded like one of the first class from the Army Special Forces, and then went into the San Diego SWAT. And that somehow really helped to inform how you help we performing artists. And I'd love to hear a little bit about that. I find that link interesting.
Well, to me, it's the same. Whether you're performing under pressure in the military or on stage as a singer, you're under high stress.
Mm-hmm.
And soldiers are trained to deal with the high stress,
Mm-hmm.
but most singers are not. They're expected to for some reason, but they're not.
That's interesting.
So it's the same kind of stress, but one group is sufficiently trained, hopefully, to deal with it, but singers are not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the gap I see.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously it's extensive training in the military that conditions you, correct, to respond to the stressors. As performing artists, we have already so much conditioning, that we have to do what we do. But are there elements of that you think we could readily incorporate into our daily practice?
Oh, sure. First of all, to expect that the pressure's not going to go away, that the better you get, the bigger the opera house or the bigger the venue, the more pressure.
Mm-hmm.
To accept it and deal with it rather than hope it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the big thing, that soldiers accept it and singers don't necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then to train for it and to do a lot more performing under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Mock auditions, singing for your teacher, singing for friends, training,
Mm-hmm.
not just singing with a coach in a relaxed circumstance, but putting yourself under the pressure as much as possible, because that's what it's about.
Creating opportunities before the big stress moment happens, creating little stress opportunities, in other words.
As much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Rather than avoiding it. Rather than avoiding it. Yeah.
Well, that's why.
And getting used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then learning how to use that energy to power your performance or power your voice or the projection and all of that. Not fighting it, but learning how to use it.
I know that's one of the big things you talk about in the book, about um, the performance energy versus performance anxiety. And you say use the energy for more power.
Exactly. The difference between Olympic athletes and most opera singers that I've worked with is Olympic athletes have learned how to use that. They see it as a positive, like I can throw the javelin farther, I can jump higher. And a lot of singers like just fight against it and don't realize that it's power. They see it as a threat or doesn't feel good, which it doesn't, or it's uncomfortable or whatever. But opera takes a lot of, well, singing takes a lot of power. And that's a great source of power. And rather than pushing it down, to learn that you can use it. So to me, it's about either power or comfort. And you can have comfort, but not power, but you can have power.
Oh,
And
that's
as far as I'm concerned, I'd like you to have power to project the voice, to be more focused, be more intense, than be comfortable and push it down. If you want to be comfortable, don't sing in public.
That's true.
Seriously, I mean that's what it's about. It's about using that energy from being in public to power the voice. Because as far as I'm concerned, with either the shot put of the javelin or opera or singing, you can't have enough power. And it's about through good voice teachers like you of learning how to use the power.
To channel it.
Blow it out or blow out your voice. But that's what good voice teachers are about, is teaching hopefully people how to use that power, not push it down.
In your experience with both sports and other performing artists, do you find singers in particularly to be more challenging because our instrument is in our body, which is different than a violinist?
Of course, yes. I know that very well. So they need to be more careful. And they can't just, sing out with a cold, unwarmed up voice.
Right.
But you have to get used to it. It's about learning how to use the power. Get the energy up and sing.
There's a big spectrum, isn't there, for performing artists about the level of anxiety, where it can be quite debilitating for people. And I know you no longer work really private practice as much as you once did, correct? You're doing broader teaching opportunities. But obviously you found that you, through your training, can create change for the singers, for the performing artists, so that anxiety, they use it to channel that energy, in other words, exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. It's how you interpret the energy. If you call it anxiety, it's a bad thing, like negative. Or from my point of view, if you see it as just energy, like performance energy, you change it. So your interpretation of it.
We have our first question from Dr. Don Padula. I'm interested in methodology for implementing this. Do you suggest particular exercises in your book and anything that you can share specifically? Are you a proponent of?
Sure.
Yes.
Not that I expect people to be super relaxed or. You need to learn how to center, which is a very specific strategy to control and channel the energy. And then you need to go through what I call simulation training, where you learn how to use that energy in performance situations at home first, and then in more live situations to get used to using that energy. It's called simulation training. Rather than thinking that the energy is going to go away, or when you're in front of a panel, you're going to be relaxed. It's not about being relaxed. It's about learning how to use the energy. If you're pursuing being relaxed, go to a health spa. If you're a singer, get used to the energy because it's going to be there.
Right.
And it's a good thing unless you make it a bad thing by calling it anxiety like a disease. Learn how to use it. I want more energy. That's why I'm against beta blockers or drinking vodka before you sing. It pushes the energy down. Energy requires, singing requires a lot of energy.
Mhm.
We want to hear that energy. We want to feel that energy. We don't want it suppressed.
Well, and to answer John's question too, John, yes, I can tell you there are assignments and surveys in the book that actually help you as an artist. That throughout the book, in fact, there are there's questionnaires, like I said, surveys that you fill out that help to guide you to where your maybe challenging areas and where your strengths are. Is that how we might say it, Dr. Greene?
Yes,
Yes, and then specifically knowing that information guides you through exploration in the book for how to move forward with some of those ideas.
exactly.
Yeah. Let's go to this. You mentioned you don't promote beta blockers. Let's talk about the physical aspect of nerves, the fight or flight response, and that there are actually physical ramifications of that and mental. Um, can you share some of that with us?
Oh, sure. There's three manifestations: physical, mental, and emotional. Okay. The physical is the fight-flight response for deer in the headlights, either wanting to run away or shutting down. Okay.
Hmm.
For singers, it's tightness in the throat and chest and shutting down. Okay.
Muscle
It's
tension.
yeah, muscle tension, which is the prime thing, but also perspiration. Just the whole fight-flight response of the extra energy, or shutting down during the headlight. Okay,
Hmm.
those are just some of the physical manifestations, but there's also mental, which is negative thinking,
Hmm.
thinking the worst, doomsday thinking, questioning, doubting, worrying, self-consciousness.
Hmm.
Then the emotional component, which is fear, which is pure fear, worrying about the worst, doomsday thinking. Okay, so under pressure, all of those three things tend to happen, and they have a tremendous impact on one's performance. Namely, they destroy it. And then in the middle of performance, or after you begin, it increases the pressure because now these things are happening to you and it's not sounding good.
Hmm.
It's not feeling good, it's not sounding good, which is more stress, more questioning, more doubt, more worrying, and that's when it goes down the tubes. Okay, this is the choking mechanism.
Right.
This is when singers don't sing even close to what they're capable of.
Right.
And the whole thing is to reverse this, to make the energy work for a singer. And that's what I teach, and that's why they tend to win auditions, because they tend to sing the way they're capable of rather than choking.
At their peak performance in a voice lesson or in a master class, they're
It
able to
doesn't matter. It
recreate.
doesn't matter. They learn how to do it.
Right.
Because the pressure doesn't go away. It
Hmm.
doesn't go away unless you stop singing.
Do you do a lot of teaching, taking them through visualization? Is that
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. But I don't call it visualization. I call it mental rehearsal. Because for a singer, it's not more about what they look like, it's what they sound like.
hmm
They have to imagine themselves sounding good and looking good, but sounding good in front of the audition panel.
you
So more
talk about
mental rehearsal, and I'm a big fan of it, over and over and over. If you
Mhm.
can't hear it right in your mind's ear, you're not going to do it.
Mhm. Acoustics, of course. I mean, this is a little of down a rabbit hole, but acoustics are always a big thing for singers. And I know for me, I would always want to warm up in the hall, in the theater, wherever I was going to perform, because it allowed me to both do the visualization or the preparation you were just discussing about, but also have a sense of my voice. So it was one less component that would be a surprise to me. It just, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Take care of that. Everything you can.
yeah.
Go there, hear the hall, hear what you sound like there. Yeah, absolutely. However, I believe in military training,
Yes.
which says that they can drop you out of a helicopter, okay? And you wind up wherever you are, and you have to sing. Middle of a field, concert stage, nasty room, wherever, whenever, drop you down, you sing. That's my military training.
I'm sure it served you well.
Any place, anywhere, anytime, they drop you in, you sing.
That's great. Oh my gosh. What a background. I could talk to you the whole hour about that background, actually. I find that really interesting. There are three in the performance success book. There are three distinct categories you talk about: suboptimal performance, optimal performance, and peak performance.
Right. Yeah, suboptimal is when you're not focused, when you're not singing close to what you're capable of. It's terrible, it sounds terrible, it's horrible. Okay? And if you're doing that, you need to figure out why. Okay? Optimal performance is where you're singing really good, considering the circumstances. That it's an audition, the room is terrible, the accompanist is terrible, whatever it is. Optimal range is 93 to 97.
Okay.
Really good, considering it's not perfect.
Yeah.
And that's what wins most auditions, because it's never perfect.
Right.
So I always go for optimal, namely make the best of it. Do your best.
You say that's where people live mostly. Most
Yeah.
people live at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the peak performance is the
Peak
magic.
performance, 97 to 100, where magical things happen, where your voice just takes off, it sings itself, and that's great, but you can't rely upon it, and you don't want to expect it in a audition because it's risky. It's on the edge, and it can be great, or you can drop and be bad. So you want to reserve that for practice rooms and with a teacher and really letting your energy soar when it's right. But my experience is what wins auditions is optimal.
Interesting. I want to remind our NATS chatters, please feel free to jump in and ask some specific questions. I would really love your contribution. And we do have another one from Dawn. Can you, she asked specifically, can you explain the difference between the two books and the benefits of each?
Which two books?
The performance success and audition success.
Yeah, okay. Audition success is not a good book.
Which one? The audition success?
No, I don't recommend it. I don't.
I should have asked you that beforehand.
No, it's okay. Because I wrote it based on some early performance artists I worked with that won auditions, but I really didn't know exactly what I was doing. But after that, I moved to New York and went to Juilliard and spent 2 years studying, going to violin lessons, voice lessons, piano lessons, not for myself, but to understand music. And after 2 years in New York, I finally understood what performing arts were about, or performing music versus sports. And it took me 2 years, but I realized they were the same thing. It was about using energy, and it was about focus. And until then, I kind of tiptoed around the performing arts like, this is fragile, this is not the shot put, this is not swimming. And after 2 years, I understood it better, but I realized it's the same thing. It's about focus. It's about using energy. It's about timing. It's about precision. It's the same thing, but then I could talk about it in musical terms. I understood enough about auditions and Juilliard and all that I could then speak in musical terms, not in musical terms, not sport terms. So people could really understood. But after that, then I could really say, okay, here's what you need to do. It's the same thing.
We definitely have the added component of the artistic element. I know I use ice skaters a lot for my students, where they have the athleticism and then they have the artistic. They get two different scores. So it's interesting to hear you say, by and large, it is the same. And using the power in the way that you're discussing, I can see that that absolutely is the same.
Well, there's two kinds of sports. There's measured sports and judged sports, okay? Measured sports are track and field, swimming, okay, where you can measure it. It doesn't matter what it looks like. Judged sports are like figure skating, diving, gymnastics, okay? And to me, music is more like that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to hit the marks, but it needs to sound right. So it's more complicated than the 100-meter dash or the high jump, because you need to sound good and look good, the whole thing. That's what I love about the performing arts.
Mm-hmm.
You need everything. You need left brain and right brain.
Yes, absolutely. It's very busy up there.
Well, it can be, but it need not be. That's the catch. That no matter how busy it need not be that busy. And whether it's sports or music, my job is teaching people how to simplify it.
Right. And what I mean by that is...
So for a long jumper, it's feeling the right jump or feeling the right steps, okay? Mm-hmm. For a swimmer, it's feeling the speed, okay? Or the flow of the speed.
Right.
Okay? For a diver, it's the flow and the beauty of it. For a musician, it's the flow and sound of the beauty of it.
Right. Absolutely. And I think what I meant about it being busy is we not only have the athleticism, literally, the physiological aspect of the respiratory system and the laryngeal system, right? But we're dealing with languages, translations, character, emotion, right? I mean, musicality, rhythm, on and on and on. Watching your conduct.
That's why I love singing. It adds all of that.
It does.
More than anything. After I started working with singers at the Miami Opera, and I went back to diving, to watching platform divers, I thought, this is simple. All you have to do is jump up and fall in the water. It takes 3.5 seconds. It's simple. Opera, oh my God. So that's the beauty of opera. But the beauty of it is you can narrow it down to one specific thing. Either the right sound of the opening note, mm-hmm. or the feeling of support, mm-hmm. or the opening gesture. Mm-hmm. But you narrow it down to one right brain thing. And you hear that first note. Then you produce it.
I love that. We're getting lots of questions. I love this. So let's move into asking. There's one big topic we'll come back to that I have too. But so Joseph Muriello says, "Hello, Dr. Greene. I wanted to ask if there's a specific information about strategies for individuals with mental health concerns, like a singer who has depression or generalized anxiety disorders."
Yeah, that's. A lot of singers have generalized anxiety disorder. But, I mean, it goes with the territory of singing in front of public people with repertoire that's hard. Beyond that, it's beyond my ability. I'm a sports psychologist. I would find somebody to help.
And in those cases, would you consider a beta blocker of some sort, or that goes down a place for you?
I would rather get to the root of the problem
mm-hmm.
than that.
Yeah, got it. Great question, Joseph. Yeah, Karen Kanakis, I hope I pronounced that right, Karen, asks, I have a student who had a very public suboptimal performance and received a lot of negative feedback. How can I help this student recover and move on from that experience?
Great question.
Yeah, great.
There's not a person out there that hasn't had a bad experience. That's how you get good. That's how you become strong. So it's helping the student realize it's normal. What did you learn? What do you need to improve
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't happen again? But this is part of being a performing artist. Nobody gets there without this experience. It's part of the training. Welcome it.
Yeah.
Learn from it. Move on.
Hmm. Karen, I'd love a follow-up if you
Yeah.
have a follow-up to that, because that's especially those of us that teach, and you do. I see on Facebook where teachers will post an incident for their student that really has debilitated them going forward. And sometimes, I used to show quarter horses, and it's kind of that old adage of get back on the horse, you
That's
know.
exactly it, Kari. That's exactly it. You can wallow in it or say, okay, I learned and move on.
Hmm. And I think as a teacher,
It's
it's
part of the
okay.
training.
Yeah, and I think as a teacher, it's okay to be supportive and acknowledge that they had a bad experience, but also teach them to move out of it, to move through that energy and on to a new experience and empower them, I think.
There it is. That's beautiful. Absolutely.
Good. That I'm on the right track.
Because
Uh,
those experiences that's going to happen. I mean, that's part of learning. That's part of
that-
progressing. I mean, in the real world. So you
that's
take
right.
advantage of those.
Yeah. Teachable moment, I call those. I mean, because
Exactly. Yes,
life is
yes.
like that. Yeah. Carolyn Sebrin says, I'm late to the conversation, but have a question. In the theatrical setting, when there are many physical demands while singing, sometimes with hundreds of people on stage, what do you recommend for performance success? I'm,
Yeah, I'm not sure why
I'm
it
not,
matters that 100 people on stage. It matters for your performance success that you do well. So if that's a concern, I would take care of that concern.
Mhm. Well, and doesn't it go back to what you talked about at the very beginning, the sense of channeling maybe the energies of others around you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now she follows, oh, she then says physical postures. So if I'm understanding, Carolyn, are you asking, okay, physical postures, distractions. She's just giving me some further,
Physical postures of others or distractions are distractions, and they have nothing to do with you and your physical posture. If it's your physical posture, I would check in with Alexander.
yes. So you're a proponent of Alexander then?
Oh yeah, big, big
That's,
time. Singers, huge.
yeah. Oh, that's great.
Whenever I hear posture, I think Alexander for singers.
Okay, sorry, Carolyn still can. So sometimes you're asked to be in a very strange physical posture that are contrary to good posture for singing, but the stage director requires it.
Great question. So this is preparing for the worst, and this is singing in any position you can imagine. Because I worked with a director one time in an opera who wanted the singer to be lying down when she sung her aria. And she freaked out. And I thought, no, just get used to it. He's the director. You can sing on your back, you can sing on your front, you can sing upside down.
Mhm.
Again, drop you out of an airplane, wherever you land, you sing. So if
Right?
that's what's asked, so then you give them what's asked.
Hmm.
That's my training, that's my background.
Hmm.
I'm not a voice coach, opera coach, I'm a former Green Beret. If they want it, give it to them. Drop me
Right.
out of a plane, I can sing. Well, I can't sing, but I can.
So I'm curious about that because I watch a movie or something and I'm thinking, how do those people fight through the absolute fear? So you had to have been scared to death at times in your training and in your service.
I come from a different background than most singers and musicians. Okay? My mother was a competitive athlete. My father was a army man. Most parents say to their kids when they're leaving home, be careful. My mother never did.
Hmm.
My brother and I wound up in the emergency room a lot. I had more injuries than I care to tell you about. But
Right?
for me, jumping out of a plane or diving off a platform was football, whatever. That's what I grew up with. And I've got all sorts of injuries, but I'm still alive. And my communication to singers is singing is scarier than jumping out of a plane for me. Okay? Being on a stage and singing and being naked there and just singing the high note, I'd rather jump out of a plane. So I have an incredible empathy for singers. That's why I love singers. But fear is fear. And I learned how to deal with fear from an early age. But all the singers I've worked with, I've taught how to deal with fear. Because that's what shuts you down. And it's not real fear. They're not going to shoot you.
Right.
It's ego fear. Okay?
Right.
So I'll tell you a story. There's a woman, a teacher in New York, people know, called Trish McCaffrey, who works at the opera.
Of course.
And she used to have me work with a bunch of her clients. And she was tough, and she produced results. But she sent me this singer who was afraid to see me. She was afraid of everything. And she was singing well for Trish in the lessons. I mean, just nailing it for Trish. But she went to auditions and she just choked. She just did terribly. And Trish said, go see Don Greene. Well, she was afraid of seeing me. And I'm not a frightening guy, hopefully. I'm just me. But she wouldn't see me for weeks. Finally, she came to see me, and she was afraid of my doorman. She was afraid of my apartment. She was afraid of me being a man in an apartment with her. Anyway, so we started working on her fear. More and more and more. And then she left for the summer, and I left for the summer. And I didn't hear from her for many months. I was at the Lake George Opera. I came back, and I didn't hear from her, and I thought she quit singing. She was afraid of doing what I asked her to do. And I thought, Trish is not going to be happy with me because this woman quit singing. So in October, she calls me, and she says, I want to see you. She came to my apartment. I said, what's going on? She says, I have good news. She says, I got over my fear. No more fear. I won my first audition for an off-Broadway show of Carmen. I signed a contract. I'm making money. I'm singing. I said, that is? She said, no. She says, this summer I went bungee cord jumping.
Oh,
I said, no way. I said, no. She said, yeah, I'm past fear. I said, your teacher is going to kill me. If she said, I don't care. I don't care. It's no longer about fear. Yeah. Because what I've learned about opera is it's about fear.
Do you think that we are hard?
Once you get past fear, the voice opens up, auditions change, and it's a different operation.
So is there...
I'm not saying you shouldn't be afraid. I understand it. I'm saying it's more than jumping out of a plane for me. But you get past it, and once you do, it changes things.
Are there exercises because like you said, fear, like jumping out of an airplane in the middle of a war zone fear is different than walking out onto an audition fear, although they may manifest themselves.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. You just have to do it. And once you do it, it changes everything.
But really facing that fear and acknowledging it.
Yeah. Because it doesn't go away unless you stop singing. That's not the goal.
No.
So you learn to embrace it and learn to make it work for you.
Yes.
And then you blow other singers away who are still trying to throttle it down. That's what I do.
I love that. Tell me, you started to share working with Trish McCaffrey. Was there a specific time that really inspired you to start working with performance artists? Was there a specific event that led you to this work?
Yeah. I I was with the Olympic diving team in Fort Lauderdale a long time ago, 86. And the opera coach from the Miami Opera, the conductor, came to see me.
Mm-hmm.
He had two apprentices that were about to quit. They couldn't deal with the pressure, okay? So he comes to see me at the Olympic Training Center, where we have platform divers, women platform divers, jumping off of 33 feet, okay, in a bathing suit.
Yeah.
And risking their lives, because you can die doing that.
Right.
So he comes out to me, and no offense against opera, but I had been a jock all my life. I was an athlete, okay? And I had avoided opera all my life. I was a Green Beret, and I couldn't be seen going to an opera, okay?
Right.
I'm a jock.
We understand.
Thank you. So he comes out to see me at the training center, and he talks about these two apprentices that are afraid of singing. And I'm thinking, they're not afraid of going out the platform. And he says, you have to work with these two women. I said, okay, I'll work with them. So it was Bohème.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both ready to pull out. Mm-hmm. So I started working with them and talking to them and going to coachings with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked the sound. I'd never heard opera before, the sound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I got them ready for the opera, and they both decided they were going to do it. And I thought, great. And they said, we have tickets for you. And I thought, if I known I was going to have to go, I wouldn't work with you. But then I had to go to an opera.
That was punishment.
I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And they said, and you have to wear a suit and tie. And I thought, that's
it. That's it. I'm out. That's great.
So I reluctantly went, and I thought I'll go through the first act or whatever, and then leave.
Mm-hmm.
Just show up and leave.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was like Pretty Woman. I was absolutely blown away. It was the most incredible experience of my life. Mm-hmm. I was crying like a baby. Yeah. I'd never heard music so beautiful in my life. I couldn't wait to see the end, and I went backstage, and everybody's hugging and crying. It's like, why have I been deprived of this?
Right.
And after that diving, it just didn't look the same. It wasn't the same.
Interesting.
I was hooked on opera. That's what took me over. And since then, I still can't get enough of opera.
Oh, what a great story. I love that.
I love opera. I love.
Oh, well, we love that you love opera. Yeah.
Well, I love working with singers because I know how tough it is, and people disrespect them or think it's no big thing, and I'm thinking it's bigger than the Olympics. It's tougher than the Olympics. I've been in both places. Mm-hmm. It's why I love working with singers, and people don't appreciate that. Yeah, okay, that's what got me hooked.
Thank you. I love that, Dr. Greene. One of my students, Ashley Beal, asks at Opera Works, which is in LA. Have you done anything? Yeah. Anne? Okay. So Ashley was at Opera Works this summer, and she says we did a number of exercises with visualization and singing, and we talked about how visualizing the perfect performance basically tricks the brain and body into thinking that you have actually done it. Could you expand on visualization exercises and how that works, the brain-body connection?
Yeah. Well, David Axe is the conductor at Opera Works, who is a good friend who teaches this. I still like the term for mental rehearsal, but I don't think it tricks the brain. I think it confirms to the brain, because all you're trying to do is reiterate to your brain, this is how you sound. This is the sound you produce. It's not like imagining you're an Olympic high jumper, of doing something you can't do. This is something confirming that this is what you do. This is how you sound. And because it's about sound, I think it's important that you repeat over and over and over through mental rehearsal, this is what I sound like. This is what this aria sounds like. This is how I sing this note. And this is the power of visualization or mental rehearsal that reinforces what you can do. not something you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important. So it's not a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how much I mentally rehearse, I can't see myself as a ballet dancer. Just, but believe me, I can see myself as a diver, and you can see yourself as a singer, and that's when it reinforces.
Mm-hmm. I love you and I are kindred spirits in that words are really powerful and important. I'm constantly, in fact, my students sometimes are afraid to say something because they know I'll reframe it. But you don't, like you said, we don't want to trick the brain, right?
No, you don't want to trick the brain or use false words. I think the
Right.
words are very important, but they need to be the correct words,
Right.
correct images.
Right.
Because as gullible as the subconscious is, which it is, it also has a bullshit flag that says, no, I can't sing opera. I can't do ballet. And that's why it's important that they're congruent
Right.
with what your experience is, with who you are, you're a singer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I'm a diver. It's congruent with me.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only push it so far.
Mm-hmm. But those messages, you same thing right back to the beginning. It's not performance anxiety, right? It's performance energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The words semantics are very important.
They are very important.
If you say this excerpt, if you say this aria is difficult, it will be. If you say it's challenging, you can deal with the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
It's all for your left brain. It's all semantics.
Yeah.
I mean, the right brain is very involved, but for your left brain, it's all semantics. It's how you phrase it. If it's hard, it will be hard.
Yeah.
It's challenging, we'll deal with it.
Yeah, got it. The
four-letter bad words are hard.
Yeah.
Can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That's important. I love this next question from another of my students. Thank you all for signing on, my lovely students. Cody Gouge says, I'm curious, since you're a former Green Beret, what teaching style provides better results? The drill sergeant approach or a more hands-free, loving approach? It seems that the drill sergeant teachers make their students afraid of disappointing them, and that fear drives their ambition and success. So are you in support of this fear, or do you think it would harm a performer in the long run?
Wow, what a great question.
Great question, Cody.
Ask her back what level her students are, what age.
Most of the ones that are on tonight are mostly emerging professionals in their 20s, and a couple of them professional singers in their late 30s.
This is a great question. I've recently become a big fan of drilling for musicians, over and over and over. Like you have an audition coming up, do mock auditions over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Because of myelin, if you know about myelin and repetition, it's all about repetition, quality repetition, okay? So to me, it's drilling over and over and over and over and over. But that doesn't mean it's a drill sergeant. Not as harsh.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need for harsh. I don't believe in harsh. From the military background, I'm against harsh or drill sergeant. It's nonsense. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe in drilling. Okay? But I also believe in being a loving, encouraging, positive, supportive teacher.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have the combination of the drilling and loving, that to me is a winning combination.
Yeah, I think that's his concern is, he doesn't want the fear of disappointing the teacher to be what drives the ambition for success. That can never be a...
I don't like any of the fear stuff. None of it.
No.
Aspiring to greatness, loving, supporting, drilling, yeah, that's the formula. No fear.
Great question, Cody. We have another question from Mark Shields. Say you usually do not feel overly nervous pre-performance. How do you handle nerves that you are unaware of until you begin to feel physical symptoms mid-performance, such as dry mouth, shaking leg, that can have a detrimental effect on your performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. Mm-hmm. Because for experienced performers, the adrenaline may not hit right on the first note, on the downbeat. You may have it taken care of, but it may come in with the exposed solo later on or something.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change it. You prepare for it. You set yourself up and prepare for that. So in your preparation, move forward to that part, get your energy up, and then deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Not avoidance, deal with it.
Right.
Learn how to do it.
Embrace it, channel it.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that I wanted to talk about, and it was funny because right as I wrote down my question in one of your books, it led me to this question, and then you answer it a bit. But the whole idea, you talk about making your dreams come true. But my question to you is, this is a subjective business. So how do we juxtapose the reality of it being subjective, with it, some of it's out of our controls, and yet we can channel all the positive thinking and drill it and do all that you've suggested, but there's a subjective nature to this.
Oh, for sure.
Any thoughts for us on that?
Oh, yeah. It's like some of the judged events at the Olympics, whether it's gymnastics or diving. And that is, half of it is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, which you can't take care of, you prepare as best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And you outflank the competition or the others. And you're so much better that there's no alternative but to choose you.
Mm.
And if you go in feeling that you've done that there's nothing you could have done better, that you're better than everybody there,
right,
you win either way. Whether you win this one or the next one, that's the mindset you need to create.
right.
Rather than worrying about what if they don't, my sound or my approach or how I look or whatever, and you just allow your control of what you can control to dominate and take care of that. So when you walk out, if they don't pick you, you say, nobody could have done better. Okay. I worked with a trumpet player years ago for the Philadelphia Orchestra audition, Philadelphia Symphony. And he did everything imaginable to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in saying, I'm going to be hired. It's my job. He made it to the finals, and three people made it to the finals. And he played, and they picked the other two. So he stayed around to listen. And he said, oh my God, if that's the sound they want, I don't produce that sound. I don't make that dark sound. If I knew they wanted that sound, I wouldn't even come here.
Right.
I nailed the audition. And that to me is what singers need to do, is not rest upon what the audition panel says, but you, because nobody knows your singing, your production, your manifestation better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go in there and produce or not?
Right.
Don't find fault with the audition panel. Maybe they're looking for something. No. How did you do? Mark yourself. Keep a journal. Did you do it or not? If you didn't, work on it.
Right.
Take the power away from them and just improve on your skills.
Right.
Yeah. To me, too many singers give their power away.
Exactly. Yeah, I always encourage my students before any audition or performance to come up with 3 things, and we say them out loud. What 3 things, based on our work the last 6 months, do you want to achieve at this audition or performance? What are they? And at the end of that event, you say to yourself, before you get anybody else's response or you realize the outcome, was I successful with those 3 things?
There it is. That's it.
Yeah. And
so that you can just keep on progressing with your audition performance in spite of other stuff. Right. And this is how you do it, yeah. This is how you
let's get through a few more questions as we approach the bottom of the half hour. Shara Boom, I hope that I'm pronouncing it right, from Anchorage, Alaska, wants to know, these strategies sound great for an individual singer. How might you engage an ensemble of any size? So she might be maybe a choral person, or I'm not certain. Is there any specific advice you might have about that?
Well, just a choral singer is, to me, another singer. And that you want to get information, you want to get feedback from your conductor, your vocal coach,
Right.
as well as yourself, and mark your progress. Not that you're one of many, but you're a singer progressing,
Mm-hmm.
and that you want to keep on working on your individual voice with a teacher, with a choral conductor, always moving forward.
Yep. Same principles. Priscilla Bagley says, I love self-attainable goals. Success is in their hands. Brilliant, brilliantly stated. And let's see, we've got one more here. Are there any, Karen asks, are there any specific exercises that you could walk us through tonight that we could use to help our students conquer fear? Is there a specific exercise? I know you, again, you walk through a lot in your book, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah, I would, if it's an individual lesson,
Mm-hmm.
I would give your student permission to fail and say, sing out. What's the worst possible thing that could happen? You missed a note or your voice could crack. Okay, let's do that. Okay, you're still alive, right?
Right.
In fact, let me crack a note. Okay, nobody's hurt. Stop fearing that. Stop bracing against that.
Mm-hmm.
You live through that. Okay, you can sound bad. Please sound bad. Now sound good. And to take the fear away from it. The fear is what destroys voices. If there's anything I know about opera singers, is that negative thinking is prevalent and doesn't help, but the fear destroys opera singers and voices. And you've got to work through the fear. It's easier to work through the negative thinking, but to work through the fear of sounding bad, looking bad, cracking a note. Mm-hmm. Every singer that's a great singer has lived through that. Mm-hmm. Renee Fleming has probably sounded bad, looked good. and that's part of the journey. Mm-hmm. That you're still standing. Yeah, okay, you sounded bad. Okay, so next time. To take the fear out of it. I mean, fear is so present in opera. I understand the fear. It's to me like diving off a platform, but it doesn't help. It doesn't help platform divers. It doesn't help singers. So yes, I understand the fear is there. I understand it. I feel it. Get past it. Don't have it interfere with your singing, because it will. And to me, all great singers have courage. Maria Callas, Coraggio, Masterclass. It's all about courage. Mm-hmm. And that's what I have to say to singers. And I appreciate the fear, but it doesn't help.
Doesn't serve us.
No, not at all.
For people
unless you learn to use it to power your voice. Right.
Back to what a perfect full circle to our chat. Besides your book, The Performance Success, which I think is loaded with wonderful tools for everyone. What other avenues? You mentioned something about you're revamping your website. Are there going to be mods?
Yeah, I've spent the last year coming up with a new website called the Performance Mastery Project. That's for performing artists.
Okay.
Singers, actors, dancers. And I've done everything. I've got a new series of inventories, workbooks, new videos, everything.
Okay.
I've been working on it for a year. And I'm going to have more video broadcasts and all that. I'm basically making this a school that I'm going to teach people. I will teach them how to, like a school, how to move forward and deal with the normal issues. The normal issues are performance anxiety, focus, concentration, ability to recover, and
attention, concentration, resilience.
Yeah, those 5 things. So,
yeah.
And that's what we're teaching. And I'm going to teach it like a school. And it's going to be launched within a month. And that's the next thing I'm doing. So to make this more available to people.
And that's at Don Greene is it org or com?
Well, no, it's going to be performancemasteryproject.com.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Performance Project. Okay. Well, our listeners, our chatters will really love knowing about that. So, well, I
It's
can.
it's all in singing terms. I mean, it's to
Right.
me, vocal is no different than instrumental. It's all the same.
Hmm. What a fun hour to spend with you, Dr. Greene. I can't thank you enough. It's a huge component to what we deal with both as singers and as teachers.
Oh
And
yeah.
I love it. I feel like you've given us just this conversation and the language and knowing that there are tools as well that people can use to explore their own. In this book, there's just wonderful surveys in this book that walk you through and guide you. It's really wonderful. So thank you, Nats Chatters, too. Our next one will be November 13th with Cindy Sadler from Classical Singer Magazine, and we're going to talk about the business of the opera singing business. And so that should be a very informative chat as well. And we're getting lots of thank yous from our chatters coming in to tell you. So if you'll stay on with me, Dr. Greene, for just a minute, and we're going to say goodbye to our chatters and wish you a good evening. And we'll see you all in a month. So thank you. Good night. Give us just a second. We just have to dismiss them all, and they'll sign off as well. Lots of things.